KJRAM and KJRFM HD2. Seattle! Available everywhere with the iHeartRadio app. Now number one in podcasting. Sports Radio 950, KJR, an iHeart radio station.
This is the 12th Man Postgame Show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours. Visit your local steel dealer today. On your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950, KJR.
It is the 12th Man Postgame Show presented by our friends at Steel. And I think steel is probably a pretty good adjective to describe the Seattle Seahawks defense tonight. Men of steel holding the Arizona Cardinals to tied for their lowest output of the entire season. Kyler Murray was a non-factor. DeAndre Hopkins was a non-factor. The running game was a non-factor for the Cardinals today. And they won, Slickhawk, a very Pete Carroll-esque football game today. This is the game, this is the type of game that we have seen the Seahawks win for a decade. And while it brings our blood pressure up, I think Pete Carroll loves these types of football games. Slickhawk, when he knows he's got a running game, he knows his passing game can go off the running game, he knows his defense isn't going to completely break down. This was a Pete Carroll football game today in the biggest win of the year for the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, I'm just going to, for the first time this year, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to applaud the defense. What an effort turned in. They were aggressive. They were quick to the ball. They were quick to fix their mistakes. They got a consistent pass rush. They took the legs of Kyler Murray and made them inadequate. It was a great defensive performance, especially with all things considered, given everything that we've seen from this defense up to this point, and we'd seen from the Cardinals offense up to this point. A true great effort from the defense tonight, and just a big hats off, stand up, a hand, whatever you want to give them, whatever kudos you feel are appropriate. Everybody can give their own, but you better be giving some to this defense, because wow, that was a hell of a game by your defense tonight.
Slickhawk, there were two men that did not play in the first Arizona game of the year that made massive impacts in this football game. I'll start with the lesser of the two impacts, and that is Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams was there. It felt like Jamal Adams was in a comfortable position today. It didn't seem like, okay, how are we going to use Jamal? Is he randomly blitzing on this play? Is he getting beat in coverage on this play? It just seemed like Jamal Adams and the coaching staff took a step today in as far as using him the right place. And then Carlos Dunlap, my man. The game started with Carlos Dunlap pressure, and the game ended with Carlos Dunlap pressure.
Well, starting with Adams, when he blitzed and didn't get home, you didn't feel like he was a liability defensively. Even when he wasn't getting home, he was getting in the passing lane of Kyler Murray, and I get he's a shorter quarterback, so that's easier to do than some of these other QBs, but he's jumping up. You know, he causes, I think that was him, it was him. He caused the intentional grounding that backs you up to the 2-yard line before you get the holding in the end zone for the safety. So just by jumping around, he, again, didn't get home, but he was disruptive there. So he made his presence felt, and yeah, there was a comfort level with him out there. Things didn't seem all haphazard, but my goodness, Carlos Dunlap, he makes the play at the end of the game. He was all over that backfield today. That's the reason why you got him, and we have been begging for a pass rusher since Frank Clark left. We might actually have one. He is a true blue, as Tony Softly would say, DPR, the designated pass rusher. We've wanted one, we've got one, and this is what can happen.
Slickhawk, let me give some props to another defensive lineman, a defensive lineman that has taken shot after shot after shot, and somewhat deservedly so.
The first rounder?
The first rounder. Number 91 came to play today. His name is L.J. Collier, and for one game, hey, man, if you're only going to play like a first rounder one time a year, this is the time to do it. In the biggest game of the season, the statement point of the season where you wrestled control of this division away from the Arizona Cardinals.
He showed up. The whole defense showed us. I don't know if you can hear it. There's fireworks going off in the background. That's how we do here in Tacoma. But no, LJ Collier showed up like he hasn't shown up before. And so I don't know how consistent it's going to be. I don't know how much you can expect from LJ Collier. But you said it. Wrestled the division away from the Cardinals. And not only that, just to the division, to the Cardinals, to the rest of the NFL, this game was an absolute statement. We are still the ones to be reckoned with here in the NFC West and in this conference. And we can play defense against a good offense. We can limit you. There are different things that we can do. And oh, by the way, Russell Wilson's still pretty good too.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And Slick, I want to ask you this question. I want to get an honest opinion out of you. If Carlos Hyde plays last week, what does that game look like?
Oh, it's a different game. But I think we knew that. I think we knew that you were limited what you were going to do or what you're going to let yourself even try to do in the running game when you got Alex Collins out there and, he's off the street. I mean, if the same thing were the situation tonight and you're going with Bo Scarborough, I'm sorry, it's just not the same deal. You get Carlos Hyde tonight. He's a starting running back in the NFL. Certainly was last year when he had 1,000 yards. He's not Chris Carson, but he is an effective starter, and he showed why. He gets tough yards. He's a Pete Carroll type runner. It's that style. If you need a yard, he'll go get you a yard. He's a smart, heady player too. Knows when to go for the extra yardage. Knows how to get down. Knows how to protect the football. And maybe the play of the game falling on that pitch that I don't know why the hell you're calling a pitch down there. Don't get me started on that. Hey, we won the game. So I don't have to freak out about that. I don't have to. The heart. See, you said the heart and everything. That really wasn't an issue for me most of the game, unless they're doing it to themselves. But the way the players were playing tonight, aside from a couple of stupid penalties, it just, the Cardinals had a chance at the end to tie it. But it was one of those where I never felt nervous. I didn't feel like things were falling out of control. Yeah. It was a very controlled game on both sides of the football. I think it was a very well coached and well called game.
And you were able to control it because you were able to do both. You were able to run and you were able to pass. 31 carries for the Seattle Seahawks. I know you and I have gone back and forth on Twitter on how many times you run, and I think you and I both agree. It's not the percentage, right? It's not like you don't have to run the ball 50% of the time and pass the ball 50% of the time. You have to have the threat of both and the constant threat of both. Regardless of what the down is. I love the fact they ran on 3rd and 2. Mm-hmm. I love the fact they ran on 2nd and 10. Because if you run on 3rd and 2 and you run on 2nd and 10 occasionally, the teams that you play in the future don't see a tendency. Like if you always drop back and pass on 2nd and 10, you always put 5 wide receivers out on 3rd and 2 and try to get the first down through the pass, The opposition knows exactly what you're going to do in the future. They're going to be able to pin their ears back and come at Russell Wilson. And this just puts a little shred of doubt in their minds, and it keeps the pass rush off Russell Wilson. And that's exactly what happened outside basically the first play of the game, which was the worst offensive play of the whole game, was the first play of the game and the sack and the loss of 6 yards. And the fact that they were able to rebound from that, overcome 2nd and 16, overcome 3 third down conversions on that first drive on just a beautiful opening drive. 5 runs, 5 passes after that initial sack. That's what I was talking about as far as cooling down the let Russ cook and just showing the threat of both.
Well, certainly you can let Russ cook and show the threat of both all together. And for me, look, I don't care if they run 50 times and throw no times and that results in winning football, cool. And the same thing with the pass. I want whatever wins and it gives you the best chance to win. My opinion is Russell Wilson gives you the best chance to win. And they ran, like you said, in passing situations, they passed in running situations, which is a great way to keep the defense on their heels. And that way, when you have a short yardage situation where they think you're going to run, then all of a sudden you can leak out Jacob Hollister and pick up a few extra yards and get a first down that way as everybody's selling out on the run. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there. It's all about balance. It's all about being able to move the football and put points up on the board. I thought that tonight, for most of the game, the last drive notwithstanding, because they're running a lot of clock there and everything, I thought the run did work off of the pass. And there were a lot of those runs that were audibles. It was very clear that there was a look that Arizona was giving where it was almost an automatic. If they're giving us this look, we're gonna audible to a run. I'm sure Hugh can talk about that when he comes on. But they did it, and it worked just about every time. It was something they obviously recognized that Arizona does, and on the short week probably weren't going to change in their scheme too much, and Seattle took advantage of it. It was a brilliantly called game by Brian Schottenheimer and a brilliantly executed game plan by Russell Wilson.
Well, the front Arizona was showing was more what you see in college football. It's more what you see in the Pac-12, what you see in the Big 12. A lot of space between the defensive linemen, the linebackers 4 or 5 yards off the defensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
There just wasn't a lot of guys in the box, and you don't typically see that, particularly against a Pete Carroll coach Seahawk team. Usually, Pete Carroll coach Seahawk team comes into a game, and the defense is thinking, we got to stop run first.
Yeah.
And they really didn't think that today. They were like, we got to stop pass first, which was kind of surprising because Pete Carroll all week long laid his cards out. We knew exactly what Pete Carroll was going to do today. He was going to give the damn ball to Carlos Hyde.
If I'm a head coach of the NFL, though, the last thing I'm doing is listening to the weekend press conference of the head coach I'm facing and taking what he is saying at face value about what he's going to do. And for Cliff Kingsbury's part, I'm sure he's thinking the same thing about the Seahawks. They're not going to change that much of their philosophy on a short week. They're playing with a beat-up offensive line. They got their right guard playing center tonight.
Amazing.
They have shown no willingness or interest to run the football the last 2 games. And so our game plan is going to be, how do we stop Russell Wilson? And the Seahawks were ready for that.
They certainly were. And, Slick, I tweeted out and I talked about it on the show today with Softy, the whole must-win thing. We saw an article about it in the Seattle Times today. Was this a must-win? And my take was this, you have to define what must-win means. And so let's break it down. Was it a must-win to make the playoffs? No. Was it a must-win to win the division? No. But was it a must-win for any realistic hope at the 1 seed in the NFC? Absolutely. You weren't winning the 1 seed at 6-4, especially with your conference record and your division record. So, yes, it was a must-seed if you want to stay in the race for the 1 seed. Was it a must-win to remain or get to the driver's seat in the division? Yes, the Seattle Seahawks have found themselves in the driver's seat of the division, particularly with Philadelphia and Washington and New York coming up. Those are 4 games that you really should not stub your toe one time in those 4 games. And barring a more than touchdown upset, you're staring now at 11-3 with 2 games left.
Ostro says yes, it was a must-win. I think for the division it was. I just don't think you fall behind the Cardinals because it's not like their schedule is massively difficult either.
It's harder though. I looked at it though, and I really thought that the Cardinals, and I stated this in my tweet. If the Cardinals would have won tonight, I really thought they were going to finish 11-5, and that Seattle was going to finish 11-5. I think we're going to lose one more somewhere. Whether we won this game or lost this game, I thought we'd lose one more along the way. Right. So 11-5. Cardinals obviously win. Virtue of the tiebreaker,
and that's really the crux of the issue because they get that extra game in hand, and that was going to be the problem. So now everything's wide open. You are in the driver's seat. You have the easiest schedule, I think Troy Aikman said, in the NFL upcoming. Certainly the next 4 games. Then you finish off with the 2 division opponents. You like to get a little revenge at the Rams, and then we'll see what the Niners are week 17. I think we both think they'll kind of be a shell of themselves, not playing for much. So. The path is certainly there. You got to take advantage of it, and you have to, you can't rest on your laurels. You got a long week to prepare for that Monday night game against the Eagles, a real long week. It's almost like a second bye week. Maybe get a little bit healthier, feel a little bit better, but definitely can't lose focus.
No question. I mean, the losses today, obviously, Greg Olsen, that did not look good. That looks to be a long-term situation. We'll get more from Pete Carroll on that. Brandon Shell, kind of tough to tell whether that's a long-term thing or whether it was a tweak. I'm not sure if he came back into the game after that. I don't think that he did, but he at least was putting weight on that as he was walking on the sidelines. That appeared to be the extent of the injuries for Seattle. And then all these guys, it's like there's not a lot of long-term injuries on this football team right now. There's Dunbar got put on the IR, so I get that he's going to be out for 3 games.
Yeah.
But you've got the 2 cornerbacks that Shaq. Shaq should be. It's a concussion. He should be back at some point fairly soon, maybe even by Monday night. Chris Carson certainly should be back. He practiced in limited this week. He certainly should be back after 10 games. I mean, you're starting now to build a team down the stretch that is going to be healthier than most and with the easiest schedule in the NFL, like Troy Aikman pointed out. That's a good combination.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they come out of tonight, and it's not a huge list from tonight. It's significant. I know we have to get to a break before we bring Hugh on here in just a minute. So, but the Greg Olsen injury obviously looked very concerning. Brandon Shell, the way he got rolled up on, you just hope. I mean, it looked like, and maybe because it was slow-mo, but it looked like it was a long time that ankle was kind of hyperextended. So
it was.
Hopefully that's not a 2, 3, 4 week high ankle sprain or something like that, because I have loved the job that Brandon Shell has done at right tackle. I mean, I haven't thought about the right tackle position that much. And so, but I think it all starts really with getting your center back, Ethan Posick. And I know we didn't think about Ethan Posick in that way in the offseason, but he's turned in a really good job. Been really happy with the job the offensive line has done so
another
far.
Great name that you just brought up, I forgot about Ethan Posick. Absolutely has done a fantastic job. And if you have that offensive line healthy going into the next game, I mean, it just opens up everything. And I shudder to think what those games are going to look like with a healthy Seahawk team against those Eagles and Giants and Jets and Washington. I mean, those we finally should, and I'll put should in quotation marks, Slickhawk, because rarely does the Seahawk team win by 17 to 20 points. That just doesn't seem to happen very often. But those should be games that are fairly stress-free. We can kind of watch these football games.
There's no such thing with these guys, and you know that, Dick.
But there's really no such thing with these guys. But what a phenomenal job by the Seahawks. They saved their best for the most important game of the season, and that was the de facto, at least mid-season de facto division championship game. They obviously have another big game coming up against the Rams. With the Rams schedule and the Hawks schedule, I just don't see the Rams getting to 12 wins. And I really don't see Seattle losing more than one more of their next 6, considering what you got on that schedule. So it's looking very, very good for Seattle. Slickhawks here. Dick Fain with you. It's the Steel 12th Man postgame show. Hugh Millen is going to join us right after this timeout. We'll hear from Pete Carroll as well. And more of your, give us a call if you want, 286-9595, 1-800-829-0950, or you can shoot us a text, social media as well. Slick's going to be reading all those comments on social media, and Slick will take it. What do you call it? 6 with Slick? Is that what you call it?
6 with Slick, yeah.
I love 6 with Slick after a win. Let's get to it right now on 950 KJR.
Tune in to Chuck and Buck every weekday morning for the 12th Man News at 7 with Tacoma News Tribune's Greg Bell on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950, KJR.
It is your first to do 6 with Slick right here on the Real Steel 12-Man postgame show right here in the virtual sports bar. What a win tonight, 28-21. Seahawks get the win. Let's bring on those comments. Carlos Hyde better than Chris Carson, according to Ostro. I don't believe that, but just the fact that you had an actual starting caliber running back in your lineup tonight, that made so much of a difference. You were able to be balanced. You could run when they thought you were going to pass. You could pass when they thought you were going to run. It let you keep moving the ball down the field. The offense looked really good. They were except for right there at the end, they weren't even in danger of a turnover tonight. So a good job. Tom says, we actually didn't know Carlos was going to play it, but until about 12 hours ago, it was great. Coming off the injury, I mean, you hate to see an injury from celebrating. And we certainly could have used Carlos Hyde these last few weeks. The fact that he was back tonight, though, that's huge. You should have Chris Carson back next week, and that 1-2 punch should be great. Marcus said it's odd that Carlos Dunlap can give you in 2 weeks was Clowney was unable to over a season. There's a difference, though, between Carlos Dunlap and Jadeveon Clowney. Carlos Dunlap is a pass rusher. Jadeveon Clowney is a true defensive end, and he's playing the run game a lot, and he's real disruptive in other ways, too, on top of the sacks. But you cannot minimize the impact of Carlos Dunlap tonight. He was a man out there. He made his force felt. Brad says under 200 for Wilson. Arizona made a lot of mistakes. So did Seattle. We got lucky. I don't know about getting lucky. This didn't feel like luck to me. This was a solid game all the way around. There were mental mistakes, no question. There were bonehead penalties in this game. There were bad coaching decisions too, but all of it kind of still came together. I mean, they did a good job. They played a good all-around game against a very good team, and they made Kyler Murray, they really minimized his impact. Nick says, loves that Quandre Diggs was smacking guys hard. Yes, needs to be careful about when he does it, because, you know, the penalty that he gets with DeAndre Hopkins extends that drive, leads to a touchdown, right? When they come out of the halftime, and we're going to have a quick 3 and out. I love setting the tone. Yes. I mean, look, we love the LOB. Why? Because they smack fools in the mouth, and they walked back there with authority, right? Walk softly and carry a big stick. I think they walked hard and carried an even bigger one. But you got to be smart about when and how you do it. Quandre Diggs, that was just a mindless penalty. I hope it doesn't happen again. I don't think it'll happen again. It shouldn't happen the first time. Daryl says, we feel a big sigh of relief with this huge defensive stop. Yes. And it's not, and I know the narrative on the defense, and the defense has been bad this year, but in big moments, they have gotten big stops. They got a big stop against Cam Newton. They made a big play against the Minnesota Vikings, getting the stop down there to extend that game. And then they get the stop down there tonight of Kyler Murray. Carlos Dunlap busting through and getting that sack. It's a great performance by the defense. Chris, I appreciate you. A great performance by the defense. And that's not something we've been able to say this year. And this is a quality offense. This is a really good offense. You're able to do that too. Dog Love, B97, offense, balance, rested defense, winning formula. Hey, long drives, rest your defense. We know this. That's a good formula. You can have and sustain long drives with balance. They had it tonight. And man alive, could this have gotten – maybe it didn't have to be like that at the end of the game, because that holding penalty, and God bless Damian Lewis. He's a rookie. He's playing the center position, which he's never played before from any accounts in his life, and he's out there. He obviously was struggling, but that holding penalty on him, yeah. Did he get trucked? Absolutely. Did he hold? Absolutely not. And that DK Metcalf catch was nullified, and then points came back the other way once you punt. I do wonder what would have happened in the game had that swing not happened, and you're allowed to continue to drive the ball down the field on that. The Lou, yes, Tom, if you want to call it that. I'm just going to call it Lumen. All right, 1-0 in Lumen Town. Yes, Dunlap, absolutely. Joe, look, I'm married to Dunlap. It's for a reason. Dunlaps are great. Carlos Dunlap was the man tonight. The defense played pretty much out of their mind, and it was just this aggressive mentality of the defense that we haven't seen so far this year. I know Trey Flowers was playing off a lot, and okay, but aggression from the defense was the biggest thing that the LOB brought. I'm not trying to compare this defense to the LOB, obviously, but I'm just saying the reason they were so effective is they got in your face. They got in the backfield. They were aggressive. Tonight, the defense was aggressive. All right. 12-man post-game show, sponsored by Real Steel. Dick Fain hosting. Bring in on Hugh Millen here in just a second. Sports Radio 950 AJR.
Now back to the 12th Man Postgame Show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours. Visit your local steel dealer today on your home for the 12th man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950, KJR.
Here's Murray set. And this ball game's going to end as Carlos Dunlap makes the play.
See, when you're not joining us on social media, you don't get the great lines dropped by Slickhawk on 6 with Slick during the radio breaks. The line he just dropped was, I love Dunlaps. I married a Dunlap. That is that is fantastic. That is tremendous work by Slickhawk there, and tremendous work by Carlos Dunlap and the rest of that beleaguered, made fun of, spit on Seattle Seahawks defense that has taken as big a beating as really any unit in the entire NFL this year. Because, you can throw out the crappy teams because nobody cares about what the units of the Jets and the Giants and those teams are doing. They only care about what the units of the top 10, 15 teams are doing. And there has been no unit amongst the top 10, 15 teams in the league that has been just crapped on, for lack of a better term, than the Seattle Seahawks
and I
defense.
don't take any of it back, by the way. Not one word of it.
Hugh Breedlove Millen joining us here now on the 12th Man postgame show, presented by Steel Dealerships, independently owned and operated with over 10,000 dealers nationwide. There is one near you, so support a small business in your community. Visit your local Steel dealer today. Real Steel. Find yours. And Hugh, they found their defensive 11 today. Give us your general thoughts on what was the biggest win of the season for the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, it almost feels like more than one win just because of how this sets the table for the rest of the season, or certainly the next month. And so just delighted to see. I think that what you saw early on was an intensity that resembled playoff intensity, and the pursuit to the ball, the defensive line, that front seven, how they shed blocks, and I've been, a big a fan of Bobby Wagner's as anybody, and we know that it's likely he's going to the Hall of Fame. These last couple of years, he hasn't always been as physical. Today, he was physical. When he made tackles, they were for 2 and 3 yard gains, not for 7, 8 yard gains. And I felt that there was an intensity. That play by KJ Wright, just as I had been thinking all week, that KJ Wright is losing a step, and I never said it on the air, but I was thinking about it. That play he made out in the perimeter against Kyler Murray, I mean, you can't make a better play for a man his size, and at this point, his 10th year in his career. So you had, the stalwarts of the defense playing like they were of old, and I think you still had some concerns about the corner play, but I would just finish with, think of all the efforts that Seattle's had to acquire pass rushers, and they've been doing it through draft and free agency and what have you. And you lose a second-round pick to Sheldon Richardson. You lose a second-round pick to supposedly the best 3 technique in the draft, and Malik McDowell, and you lost a third-round pick with Jadeveon Clowney. And so now at the most critical time for Carlos Dunlap to have that sack on a 3-man rush, and when I broke down Bruce Irvin, I just want to share. You guys know because you've heard me, but I have been a tough grader on some of these defensive ends. Like hang on, I'm going to go back, just watch the sack reel. How many did they really create, and how many did they fall into? Let me tell you something. I cannot give you a better example of what Carlos Dunlap did on that sack. That is the second most coveted skill in all of professional football. The number one being, of course, a quarterback who can make good decisions and throw the ball accurately and have the poise to win games for you. But a guy who can turn the hoop like Carlos Dunlap, take a offensive tackle, no stunts, no gimmicks, no nothing, just line up and beat an offensive tackle around the hoop. That ball was snapped on the 37-yard line, and Murray from shotgun retreated to the 37-yard line. And then started to step up. Carlos Dunlap never had any portion of his body deeper than the 36-yard line. That's what you call running the hoop, and it was a quick beginning of the down. Murray held it a tad, but boy, oh boy, did Dunlap win. In my mind, in a hurry. And that's what you want from a defensive end. That's winning early in the down, beating a tackle, running the hoop. And when I say running the hoop, in practice, they have literally an 8-foot hula hoop out there. Maybe it's 10 feet, whatever the diameter is. And the defensive linemen, they run around the hoop to practice turning a tight radius. They'll even put a towel, down in the ground inside the hoop and have guys reach down and pick up the towel to practice getting low. So that's what you call running the hoop, and Dunlap did that, and And boy, I just couldn't be happier for the team. It just feels like an awesome win. And I'll tell you what, we had a party going and we were all doing the foo-foo dance because I was feeling fine after that win. That was cool.
Well, you talk hoops. I'll talk hoops for a second too, because that KJ Wright play, it reminded me of like a 1-4 screen when in basketball, when the power forward comes up and sets a pick for the point guard. You got to fight through so you still have your point guard guarding the other point guard. And this was like a switch where the power forward had to guard the point guard. And you're like, oh, crap, the point guard's going to kill the power forward off the dribble. And KJ just kept that low center of gravity. He's moving his feet side to side, just like a beautiful. As a basketball coach, I was like, God bless you, KJ. That's how you play slide defense right there. That was gorgeous.
Well, that's a good analogy. And I think that for KJ, his primary responsibility is an awareness of where your help is, and you can't lose leverage. The Seahawks did that on a few occasions. And, I write my notes like, how are you losing leverage here? And yet KJ knew that he had help to the inside. He knew he had no help to the outside. So he had to square up his hips, to make a tackle, but he could not get beat to the outside. And he had the presence with his experience and expertise to not allow that. But it's just a really great feeling. And it's not just the defense, the offense to have some clutch drives in the second half. I just love how that was an intensity. I felt two emotions this week that I seldom feel for the Seahawks. It's kind of more emotions you feel for your college team, but for lack of a better term, I felt sorry for Russell Wilson. And as I speak that out of my mouth, I really don't like how it sounds. So I got to find a better way to craft my thoughts on it. But last week, just watching him be dejected and feel like he just didn't have answers and what have you, for a guy who's just so eminently positive, for Russell to come out and we've always acknowledged that for Russ, one of the things that's great about him is in clutch time, fourth quarter, overtime, playoff games. What does he do? He always looks to use his wheels. Like he is more willing to use his wheels. He's less willing to slide early in the down. Like he's going to get more yards. And Russ had that mentality from the jump, like he was going to use his wheels, and he did to great effectiveness. So it was great to see him competing. I think maybe backed off a couple of opportunities to DK Metcalf, but to see him, kind of play a Russell Wilson game was cool to see as well.
Let's talk about the differences between what you saw defensively this week versus 3 weeks ago against Arizona. And let's break it down instead of just big picture. Let's break it down, pass rush and then coverage. Let's start with the pass rush because we talked about it a few weeks ago against Arizona in that loss, that the pass rush they seemed so scared of Kyler Murray running the football that it's just like the snap, and they just kind of stand up and just kind of hold their ground, and there was no even attempt at a pursuit at Kyler Murray. Talk about what you saw from the pass rush that was different this week than what you saw 3 weeks ago.
Well, what I saw was a pass rush that was more aggressive, squeezing the pocket. And before they were just kind of playing high and not really trying to squeeze the pocket. They were still maintaining their lane integrity, but they squeezed the pocket much better.
And then the cornerbacks and the defensive back play. Slickhawk, you got your third string and fourth string defensive back going right now.
Yeah.
And for the most part, Trey Flowers, DJ Reed, pretty damn good job tonight from those guys. Though neither one of them are starters. Pretty damn good job by those two guys, Slick.
Yeah, I mean. I think that's still an area of weakness.
But they're your third and fourth guys is my point.
No, I understand. And that really was the area that was the most concerned. I mean, if you're talking about, okay, there was a lot of people on that team on both sides that you'd say, man, that's good football. That is playoff football. That, as I said, the front seven,
right.
The offensive line, how they created some lanes. I mean, that's hard as hell when you're in your third string center and Damian Lewis, God bless him, an offensive guard moving over to play center. That's just rugged duty. So there was a lot of guys, I didn't have that sense about the corner play. But they held up, and you know what? They were part of a unit. It takes 11, and they were part of a unit that held a damn good offense. If you'd have told me Kyler Murray was going to have under 270 yards passing on 42 attempts, so the yield is going to be manageable, and that Murray himself would only rush for 15 yards on the football game, and the rest of the running backs for the Cardinals were going to rush for 42 yards, I'd have said, man, Seattle's going to win this game, and maybe comfortably. So they were part of a unit that did that. So this is not a time or a night or a mood for me to be, critical of anybody. I'm just delighted that the team came together and put forth a real, legitimate, genuine, authentic playoff effort tonight.
From Pete Carroll's press conference, it looks like Greg Olsen has a ruptured plantar fascia in his left foot, which is the same injury that he did have in his right foot earlier in his career in Carolina. Unsure yet whether or not he's going to be able to make it back later this season from that. Shaq Griffin, though, good news. It does sound like Shaquille Griffin is going to be able to play next week in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
So that's good news for the defense.
No, that's big indeed, Hugh.
Very distinct emotions. First of all, about Greg Olsen, I think it should acknowledge this. Those of us who love football, we know what that guy has been into the league. He came into Chicago, heady player, great competitor, almost an overachiever in terms of what he was able to accomplish with his athleticism, and he was Cam Newton's go-to guy. You go to back to Cam Newton's MVP year, third down. Slick, I see you nodding. You guys know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this guy's been a great pro. Every time I've ever heard him interviewed, he's got humility. He's a consummate professional, really is what he is. Now, when Seattle acquired him, I went back and I looked at Tony Gonzalez, and I looked at who's the cat down at San Diego?
Antonio Gates.
Yeah,
Antonio Gates. I looked at Shannon Sharp. I looked at all the premier tight ends, and I looked at what do they do at age 35. And the answer is that nobody does anything. And that's kind of what I said coming into the year, that I'm not anything I get. I have zero hope for Greg Olsen. And so I don't think I don't want this to sound callous, because I hope I acknowledged all of the wonderful attributes about Greg Olsen. But if we're strictly talking meat and potatoes, fortunes of the Seattle Seahawks, I don't think it's a big blow because he's 30.
I think it's fair.
We'll go back to the interception from a week ago. That's a 6-step out route with a spray release. I know the route well. I know the technique well. I've learned it 40-something years ago. And you got to break off your third inside step, which is your 6th step. You break off your 5th step, which is an outside step. You're going to be weak. You're going to have a high radius. You're not going to be able to turn the corner and beat a corner. And so his technique was wrong, and it was a major contributor to that interception that Russell threw at a key time in the game. I've watched Greg Olsen enough in this year that I'm not crushed by his loss, and that's strictly on the football side. The personal side, it goes without saying, our heart goes out to a great professional that who knows what this means for his career. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be unthinkable to assert that this might have been his last night, which would be really sad, because league should take note of guys that have been so good and so humble and so professional.
Any concern with the depth now, because you just lost Luke Wilson to the Ravens? So are you cool with Hollister and with Disley? Is that a deep enough tight end room?
No, but I didn't think that I thought that one of the weaknesses for Seattle, people talk about the depth, but I just didn't feel like there was star power there. And so, yeah, it hurts to lose Olsen, but you just instead of playing 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, you play 11 personnel, with 1 tight end. And Disley is a very good blocker, and I think he's a better zone receiver than he is a matchup problem for people in man-to-man. So look, I've come to accept that Seattle's the lead at wide receiver. They're elite, certainly in the top 2. David Moore is kind of hit and miss. So they've got some weapons, but I've never really felt like, wow, these guys are freaking loaded at tight end, even with Olsen.
You talked about the corners a little bit. Overall coverage tonight versus what you saw 3 weeks ago against Arizona. Was the coverage better simply because the pass rush was better, or was the overall coverage just better this time than it was that time?
Well, I think the pass rush, certainly there's a synergy there. And I think Murray was off his mark, off his spot, meaning his throwing mark, and that contributed it. But I'm surprised that they didn't try to go outside more than they did. I would have been working Hopkins and really forcing Seattle to play cover 2 all night. And Larry Fitzgerald on the other side as well. And number 13 for them,
Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk. He was kind of wearing out DJ Reed. But look, somehow they held up. It's a win, and the defense played phenomenal. I think the corners were the only part that had me biting my nails.
I mentioned to Slick before you got on, Hugh, that it just felt like Jamal Adams was being used comfortably. Like it wasn't just random blitzes here and there and then getting lost in coverage. It always seemed like there was a rhyme or a reason to where Jamal Adams was at all particular times. Did you feel that too, or was that just my perception?
Well, they have him down in the box where they need to have him. They were limited in their blitzes with him because the numbers have borne out, even going back to the game against Dak Prescott and what have you, that really ever since the Atlanta game, Seattle as a defensive unit has not been great when Adams blitzes. He'll make a couple plays, but then that's offset by 8 or 10 or 12 other big gaffes by the defense. And so tonight, I think they were more judicious with that. I thought the best play he made, obviously, was the play that preceded the safety, because he came and he just uses football instincts to be in the alley and create that grounding call. Yeah. That was really a hell of a football play. When you give up what Seattle did to acquire him, you expect not just the production from that position, you expect an overall football player like Derek Jeter making the crazy flip at home plate. You just expect a star of that caliber to make a football play. And I felt like right in that instant, he had the instincts to make a hell of a football play. It was, I believe, a 12-yard loss back to the 2, and the very next play, Jaron Reed gets the safety. So that was the best play I thought he made. He had the worst play he made was he lost contain on a blitz where Murray went to his left side. It's kind of a fake bootleg, and when I say he lost leverage, when you come from the outside, you got to make sure that the quarterback doesn't get outside of you. And if he's going to beat you, he's got to beat you inside because you have more help there. But if you let a quarterback out of the pocket by losing contain, now what should be a 3-second coverage for the defense becomes a 6 or 7 second coverage. And that's hard to do.
Was that his man on that balloon ball touchdown to Chase Edmonds where nobody was covering him? Because it kind of looked like, when I saw the replay, it looked like Jamal was kind of in no man's land there. And obviously nobody was 5 yards from Chase Edmonds in the end zone.
Well, I was watching at a party where I couldn't rewind it. It looked like man-to-man, and I think it was Stephon Diggs. Now, don't quote me on that.
Diggs. Yeah, Quandre Diggs.
Diggs.
I wish we had Stephon Diggs. Can you imagine Diggs and DK and Lockett? Wow.
Why are we wasting Stephon Diggs on defense? What are we doing?
I think it was Diggs.
Yeah, okay.
37. I think he had man-to-man on because the play emanated from number 3. You say, well, what the heck does that mean? From a trips formation to Seattle's right. Well, let's think about it from the defensive perspective. To Seattle's right, you count. Number 1 is the widest, then number 2, number 3. So it's 3 receivers. That number 3 ran a shallow cross. The reason you saw Adams over there on the left side, that wasn't a zone. What often will happen is if a guy has man-to-man, and then that guy pass blocks. Let's say you have the tight end or you have the running back, and then the guy you have in man-to-man coverage blocks, you're kind of standing there in no man's land. You can't really back up, because what if the guy that you have in man to coverage, bluffs a block and then leaks out to the flat? So you've got to stay in that area that looks kind of like no man, almost like a robber lurk or a spy area. So just at first glance, with a couple of seltzers under me, I think that I was Quandary Diggs a man-to-man, and he just lost his guy. His eyes got undisciplined.
Hugh, I've been a broken record. I've bothered you about it. I've bothered Holmgren about it. I've bothered Twitter about it, about the balance, the offensive balance, and just having to run the ball no matter who your running backs are. And obviously, it makes a huge difference when you step up in talent from DJ Dallas, Alex Collins to Carlos Hyde. There's no question about that at all. And so that really helped today. But just talk about what the run game did for not only just settling Russ down over his, last 3 weeks or so, and then also what it did for that defense tonight.
Well, I think Carlos Hyde had a hot hand. It seems like he had more than the 79 yards that he did, but he was at 5.6 average and a long of 17. So I felt like he was consistently hurting the defense. I think for his part, now he's no Chris Carson. Carson will move a pile more than anybody who played tonight for Seattle. But the difference between Hyde, of course, he's more experienced. I think his vision is better. I think he just has a sense for how the defense is flowing. So I think he hits the hole better. I think that when they get him to the second level, as they did several times tonight, I think he has a good feel for just kind of, where to weave his path. And so that was a big upgrade. And as for the pressure, I think that's just pressure on Russell Wilson. I think tonight obviously was just a game that we're accustomed to seeing from a balance standpoint, where the defense feels like they have to really honor the run, and defensive linemen have to make sure they can't just sell out and try and get into pass mode all the time. And linebackers can't just at the snap of the ball be on their heels ready to think about their pass coverage responsibilities and how they're going to pattern read and what have you. If you throw too often, so goes the theory, then the defense is going to get into a groove, like a pitcher that's either always throwing the breaking ball or always throwing the fast, right? And so I think you saw signs of that tonight, that the defense front seven specifically for Arizona, they had to honor the run enough, and certainly Seattle was more than productive enough to impact the game.
And Slickhawk made the point earlier in the show before you got on how Russ was kind of controlling that as well. Maybe not always were they play calls from Schottenheimer, that Russ was seeing fronts that he liked and audibling to the run. I know that you weren't in a position to kind of you'll look at that much more on film and be able to tell when on the morning show tomorrow how many times Russ was able to audible to the run. But did you notice that at all watching firsthand?
Yeah, and if you get favorable blocking angles, some schemes you want to go to the bubble. The bubble is usually defensive tackles will have a shade side. That's the one technique, the outside shoulder, the center, and then on the opposite side of the center, you'll have a 3 technique, which is on the outside shade of the guard. So the bubble then is on the shade side, or you say, well, no, we want to go to the 3 technique because we can get a nice double team between the guard and the tackle. That 3 technique is just sitting right there in that B gap. We can get double movement. So it's usually front generated, or it's rotation oriented, where, hey, where's the safety rotating down? And so you'd run away from a safety or run to a lighter nickel back. There's a few just kind of generalities that control those type of calls, and I think you saw Russell taking advantage of all of that.
That's Hugh Millen, Slickhawk, Dick Fain with you. It's the 12th Man Postgame Show, the biggest win of the season without question for the Seattle Seahawks. Not only it's their 7th of the year to put them in first place in the division, but it's a big win against a division opponent that you were tied with. Now you have the easiest schedule in the entire NFL the rest of the way. Still got to win those games. You got to take advantage of that easy schedule. But certainly Seattle looks to be in the position, not only how they played today, but also with the health that they should be getting over the next week or so. They should be able to handle those games. We'll hear from Pete Carroll when we come back. I want to take Hugh through a couple plays as well. I want Hugh to break down for us that huge 3rd and 1 to Hollister with 4 minutes left. I want him to, that was just a beautiful design play. I want him to take a look at that one. And then the not so beautiful play, what shot he thinking pitching the ball to the weak side?
Bruh.
You just hand the damn ball off, dude. We don't need to do that. But fortunately, Carlos Hyde was able to fall on that football and save this win for Seattle. We'll have more of Hugh, more of Slick, and Pete Carroll coming up next. The 12th Man Postgame Show presented by Steel on 950 KJR.
Tune in to Chuck and Buck every weekday morning for the 12th Man News at 7 with Tacoma News Tribune's Greg Bell on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR.
All right, 6 with Slick Part 2, and I want to start kind of where Dick left off. First of all, let's throw your comments in here. Just type them in, and we will go through as many as possible. I do want to start, though, where Dick left off, just talking about the rest of the season for these Seahawks. Yeah, you're getting healthier. Yeah, you have the easiest schedule in the NFL, and yeah, right now you're in the driver's seat for the division, so things are looking pretty good. Eric says, honestly, Lewis playing center for the first time was a surprise. He did. I'm not going to say he did great. He did as well as could be expected of anybody who has never played that position before. Like I mentioned before earlier a couple times, didn't go great for him. But you know what? Good on him for getting in there, sticking his head in there, and really playing at a position where they needed help because of the injuries up front. And so hopefully they can now work some of that out, get some guys back. Ethan Posick should be back, I would think, for Monday Night Football next week. Brandon Shell's injury, by the way, he has an ankle sprain. Don't know the severity. Don't know if he'll miss time or if he does, how much. So, all right. Dunlap, Sackey Murray is like the Hulk eating breakfast. I just love having a guy like that. It's been forever. Blues 22, Chels, thanks goodness they kept Hollister. No kidding. I mean, I was one of the ones saying, hey, that's a great opportunity to trade somebody, bring somebody in, and shed some salary. You're going to need Hollister down the stretch. Sean, the defense was okay, but they can't stop an offense with 21 yards to go for a first down. Look, it's going to be like that. I mean, this is not your 2013 Seahawks defense, and it's just not going to be. The defense is not great. But if they can do similar to what they did tonight, you're going to be okay because you got an offense that can put up points. Nick says, felt like the Hawks won the mental game like normal, which is what they were missing last week. There were some moments where I was wondering if that was going to be the case or not. They came around. There were definitely some boneheaded moments. Your offensive linemen, thank them for saving DK from one of those. Andy says, I've been patiently waiting on the defense to get better. Wish more 12s were patient. It's a long season and a lot of football left. Andy, I mean, we watch these games. We're reactionary. That's the name of the game. Come on, we're fans. And the defense to this point hasn't been very good. They have shown signs of life even before tonight. And then tonight, my main thought on this too, was on the Jamal Adams thing, because we talked a little bit earlier about how Jamal Adams, the defense seemed to have a little bit more of a comfort with him. I think the role that he has, what he does, I think it absolutely takes a while for the defense to know how to adjust and gel and move around if he's going to be blitzing. I think all that just takes time to work out and be on the field together and work that out. So it looked better tonight than it's looked since the Atlanta game. Connor, don't let this make you forget that the Seahawks traded 2 first-rounders for the now 84th rated safety in the league. I refuse, from what I've seen, Connor, this season out of Jamal Adams, I refuse to view him as a safety. I'm not going to do it because he doesn't play that role when he's being most impactful. He's a linebacker. He's a blitzing linebacker for this team. He's an extra guy. That's what he is. What he does in the back end defensively, I guess that's gravy. But I'm looking at him as a blitzing linebacker and the way he impacts the game in that way. And so PFF rankings compared to other safeties, I can't go there. He's not Budda Baker. He doesn't do both exceptionally well. It's just not who he is. But he does have a very unique skill set, and that showed up again tonight. Eric says more balance in the game. Yeah, you got to have balance. Any offense, any quarterback in football will be helped by a balanced rushing attack. They'll all tell you that because it's true. The defense can't just tee off on the pass. And so, yeah, absolutely. Balanced rushing attack. Puck. Should DK have caught the touchdown in the back of the end zone? Well, as you know, I like my all-pro receivers to catch just about everything. That thing got on him so fast. I mean, that was a freaking fastball, and I'm not going to fault anybody for not coming up with it. I mean, he didn't even get a chance to put his hands up. It went off his face mask, for God's sake. So I'm not going to fault him. The drop he had later on, I will fault him for that. Mike, all-pro receiver catch that touch. Yeah, I hear you, Puck. Yeah, I like my all-pros to catch up. That said, that one I'm going to give him a pass on. Mike says we should have won that game by 20. I thought they should have been up at 20 by halftime, the way they were outplaying the Cardinals, but a referee's mistake really helped out the Cardinals there in that first half. That's one reason why the game wasn't more lopsided. You say fire Ken Norton Jr., there are a lot of days this season to say fire Ken Norton Jr. Today is not one of those days. Ken Norton Jr., Pete Carroll, whatever they did with the defense tonight, whatever their plan was on a short week for one of the better offenses in the league, for an up-and-coming quarterback like Kyler Murray and what he's been doing with the Cardinals, what they did tonight absolutely deserves recognition, and I hope they can build on it in the future. I hear music. That must mean Dick Fain's coming back. It must mean Hugh Millen's coming back. And it must mean the 12th Man postgame show presented by Real Steel is back right now on Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Now back to the 12th Man postgame show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours. Visit your local steel dealer today on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR.
It's 12-Man postgame show brought to you by Steel and the Seahawks. Steely on both sides of the football today, particularly on the defensive side. They've now held the Rams and the Cardinals to 44 total points in the last 2 weeks. I don't think there's a lot of people, 7 days ago that would have thought that would happen. And you would have thought, had you held the Rams to 23 and the Cardinals to 21, you'd go 2-0 in those football games, but at least they got one win and they go 1-1. But most importantly, they are the solo leaders in the NFC West. They are 7-3. They drop Arizona to 6-4. We're going to hear from Pete Carroll in just a few moments. But before we let Hugh go here, I do want to talk about a couple of those plays down the stretch, Hugh. The first one being about 4 minutes left to go in the ball game. Seahawks marching, but they're facing a 3rd and 1. And, just a pivotal play just to keep the drive going, just to continue to milk that clock. I mean, if you give Kyler Murray 4 minutes left to go, he can do just about anything he wants to do with that offense. Tell us about that little dump play to Hollister to get that first down on 3rd and 1.
Yeah, well, obviously it's a heavy run propensity in the eyes of and mind of Arizona, and they had a heavy box. They had what's called a 4-2 box, 4 defensive linemen and two linebackers, when Seattle had been spread at the onset of the play. Jacob Hollister was split out wide, or I think Tyler Lockett was on the right side, but Hollister was out wider than the receiver there. And you had a 3rd-string safety, or he's listed at number 3, Chris Banjo, number 31. He had been out there on Hollister. So that gives you a man-to-man indicator. So when Hollister then motions in, or really more accurately to say he shifts in to be the tight end on Russell Wilson's right, Banjo follows him in, and then you had the play is faking the inside zone to the left, over left guard. And for Banjo, what he sees is the right tackle, Cedric Ogbuyi, he's blocking his man. And so that C gap, which is right outside the tackle, that C gap looks really inviting. So Banjo thinks that, hey, I can knife in. Nobody's blocking me. Hollister had motioned in, but he's still flexed out a yard or two. So he can't prevent me from knifing in that C gap. So it looked like he just momentarily thought he was going to just knife on in there unblocked and make the play and be the hero. But it was a great fake and a great call. And so Hollister just slips out into the flat. It's man coverage, and his man was peeking in the backfield thinking he wanted to stop the run.
Just huge there. And it saved over 2 minutes of clock time, because let's say that pass was incomplete, so what have you. You've got 4 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, and you're kicking a field goal from the Arizona 24. Now you end up only gaining 1 more yard in that drive. That's not the importance of that first down. What the importance of that first down is, you killed 2 minutes and 6 more seconds of clock before you ended up kicking the field goal, because you had the the fumble by Russell Wilson.
Could
have been more, no question about it. I mean, 2:54 left, Hugh. 2nd and 7 at the Arizona 12. I'm just happy with hand it off to Carlos up the middle, get 3 or 4 more yards, set yourself up with a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, make Arizona call another timeout, and instead, yikes, the pitch to the weak side that, I don't know, Carlos Hyde wasn't expecting, or what do you think happened on that play? And why in the world, put yourself in the shoes of Brian Schottenheimer. What did he see that would lend him to believe that was a good play call at that time?
Well, he was anticipating an over aggressive defense, and the play's a flip. The Rams under Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk, they used to love this play, or a variation of a different formation, but a variation of that play. And really what you have schematically is you have DK Metcalf. And I just want to take a second as an addendum to this, that you can't imagine how much DK Metcalf is involved in the running game blocking, from blocking on the perimeter for a long time, screen passes, being the point guy on attack on wide receiver screens, and on crackback blocks. And on this case, they put him in what's termed a nasty split. A nasty split is when the the split end, he goes from way outside, and then he lines up really near the tackle, and he's in a position to crack back on the defense end, or crack down on the defensive end. So the scheme was that Metcalf was going to crack down on the defensive end, and you had Dwayne Brown was going to pull out there on the perimeter. So the end, and I forget his number, but the right end for the Cardinals just was able to get a great jump on the ball and create penetration. So Metcalf, I think in that moment, was thinking, if I try and aggressively block this end, then I'm going to knock Dwayne Brown off of his course, because Dwayne Brown was keeping a tight course. A lot of times offensive tackles will give more ground on that scheme, but Brown was almost going straight laterally. So Metcalf in that moment, this is again my conjecture, but I think it's a fair inference, he was worried about having a collision with Brown. In the end, and again, I apologize, I don't know which one it was. I mean, I can look at their depth chart at the right end, but I don't know for sure it was that guy. Whoever that was, he got the penetration and disrupted the play. Now, is this just money in quarterback, or more specifically Thursday night quarterbacking? A little bit. I mean, if you get the crackback, I could show you a whole reel of great DK Metcalf crackbacks this year where they've gotten plays out on the perimeter. Hell, the first touchdown Alex Collins had against the Rams the other day, that was a crackback block. I mean, it just on and on. In my mind's eye, there's probably a reel of 30 blocks on crackbacks where Metcalf has been able to make that happen. And had it worked, we're sitting there going, hey, that flip play takes advantage of an over-aggressive defense wanting to squeeze the middle, and you got the ball to the perimeter. The part that I actually don't like, when you draw it up, if we were just going to draw it up on a whiteboard, and there's an old saying that between the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator, he who has the grease pen last wins the battle, or wins the argument. What I wouldn't want to have a grease pen and try and defend is the idea that Mike Iupati is going to be able to get out in space and make a block on Budda Baker. Budda Baker was just too fast to get around that block. So even had Metcalf got the crackback block, and let's say Dwayne Brown had given the ground and he was out there on the perimeter, you still had the issue that Budda Baker, perhaps the best safety in football, was coming on fire like a lightning bolt, and there was no chance Iupati was going to make the block. In fact, Iupati did not make the block, And at that juncture, Ayupati would have had no way of knowing that the play was going to be aborted in the manner that it was. So I think all in all, something that Shadi probably is just going to put a wry smile on his face and be thankful that it didn't cost him the win. And he probably thinks, okay, at that time, the risk of an 11, 12-yard loss like that, too great, and maybe just save that for the first quarter. Right. And just to kind of keep people honest. That's kind of more of a first quarter play in my mind.
And then they throw the incomplete pass on 3rd and 18. I was a little surprised they passed there. I probably would have just run the ball for 3 or 4 yards and forced a field goal and another timeout taken. But then the offensive series at the end by Arizona, maybe compare it to some of these last-minute defensive efforts that Seattle has had this year. I mean, Murray for 6 yards to Fitzgerald. Murray to Fitzgerald again for 6 yards. That takes you the 2-minute warning. Andy Isabella for 6 yards. Christian Kirk for 12 yards. Then there's an incomplete pass. Fitzgerald for 11 yards. Edmonds up the middle for 11 yards, which was kind of interesting because that took 14 seconds off the clock. Incomplete to Kirk, and then the incomplete to Fitzgerald, leading us to the 3rd and the 4th down play, the incomplete pass and the sack. Evaluate Seattle's defense in the last 2 minutes there, Hugh.
Well, I think that Arizona did have enough time. You were talking about how important it was to kill clock, and I agree with you, but I don't agree with that point to the extent like that was necessarily a game changer, because with 2:19 remaining, Arizona had plenty of time. You knew they were going to be in 4-down territory for the drive, right. And they got the ball at Seattle's 21. And as you said, 6 yards, then 12, and then incomplete 11. That was the gains there. And the Cardinals never faced more than a 2nd and 10 on that. The only 2 other second downs they faced were 2nd and 4s. Like there was no 3rd down until they got to 1st and 10 on the 27-yard line. And so those next 4 plays going into that 4th quarter kind of said to some people around me, like, Seattle's just going to have to play clutch. Not Russell Wilson's going to have to play clutch. The football team's going to have to be clutch for this 4th quarter, because, very early into the 4th quarter, the Cardinals turned it into 23-21 football game. Right. That was with 13-19 remaining. So for Seattle, I think we should talk about all 4 of those plays. 1st and 10 at the 27, because there was enough time. There's a throwaway that Murray had, and I wrote time in my notes that he had the time. So there was a covered sack, and forgive me right now until I study it, I can't tell you who to credit, but on some level, it wasn't a blitz. Credit the secondary. So that brings up 2nd and 10. That was the one where you had Larry Fitzgerald going down the middle, the seam route against the cover 2. And oh my God, did I want to strangle Quandre Diggs for that 15-yard penalty early in the 3rd quarter? I was so angry at him. Yeah, but he made a play on that ball for Larry Fitzgerald. Now, Larry Fitzgerald, with his Hall of Fame status, he can turn around and look at a back judge who might be like a middle school, gym teacher, and Larry Fitzgerald begging for a pass interference.
He might get one.
He might get one.
Yeah.
But Diggs came over and made a play on the ball.
Yep.
And so, yes, there was early contact, but that official saw it exactly right. Diggs is entitled to make contact if he's making a play for the ball. And so I thought that was outstanding. And by the way, that was a seam route. I wrote down seam route originally, but there was a flare, I should say, a wrinkle to Fitzgerald's route. Instead of running vertical and then breaking down the middle on a bender between 2 safeties, because Seattle was in a 2-high defense. What Fitzgerald did is he runs at Bobby Wagner to potentially freeze him, and then ran in behind him. We run that particular route at the high school level, and we have our terminology for it. And it's a different setup to try and attack the middle linebacker at him and then through the middle, as opposed to down the field and through and then bend it. Am I making sense?
Yes. Yes.
So there was a wrinkle. And so Wagner, I think, was adequate in his coverage, not great. He was good enough to force their trajectory that he had to put a little bit of touch on the ball. I think it was poor scheming in that the Cardinals should have had a vertical route up the sideline to hold Diggs a little bit more, because Diggs was able to fall into the middle. But anyways, he made a great play. And then, boy, oh boy, Seattle got lucky. Whoever number 17 is.
Isabella.
Was that Amendola?
Isabella.
Isabella. Yeah. All right, Isabella. Seattle caught a break there. Had Murray been on time, that's just a smash concept. A smash concept is when you have a corner out on the inside and some type of hitch shallow in the flat.
Looks like Reed lost some sort of contain there, right? Looked like it was DJ Reed was scrambling to get back to Isabella there.
I wouldn't call it contain. His responsibility as the what's called a cloud corner would be he wants to sit on any route in the flat, but he's got to be aware of that. If his man, the widest guy, meaning number one, closest to the sideline, if he runs some type of control route, that's a hitch, that's a whip route, anything in the 5 to 7 yard area, he's got to be able to think, wait a minute, the reason they're dangling this cheese is because they're trying to get the corner route on top of it. And football, if there's any football coaches listening right now, they're nodding their head going, yeah, I know smash is a universal concept. So they ran smash. Now it happened to be from a trip set, but the element is still the same against a half safety Diggs and read the corner. They were trying to hit a corner out. I'm using the word corner in two different ways. You got the cornerback read and his cloud responsibility, and then you have the corner route by Isabella.
Okay.
Had Murray thrown that ball on time, I mean, I just look, Tom Brady would have shoved that thing in there a lot earlier, and we'd have gone to overtime. So Seattle made a late play on the ball between Diggs and Reed, but they got lucky because Murray did not execute the way he needs to be a top flight professional quarterback. That would be a minus on his grade sheet. And then lastly, the sack. And just as we talked about the 3-man rush, and for Dunlop to do exactly what you want a defensive end to do. We're not talking about some stunt and Murray scrambles around and you get a sack 5.5 seconds into the play. We're talking about, dude, line up and just beat their right tackle. You're the left end, beat their right tackle. Yep. And do it in a hurry and do it around the edge without losing contain. Don't slip into the B gap and think you're going to get cute, because then he'll bust outside and extend the play for who knows how long. You got to beat him on the outside. And it was just virtually textbook on how a left end wants to beat a right tackle. And it happened relatively early in the down. It was just a beautiful play by Carlos Dunlop to end that game. So those 4 plays to me was, again, not Russell Wilson playing clutch, the Seattle Seahawks playing clutch. And it just happened to be that it was the defense that was on the field at the end of the game. They had to be clutch. They allowed the Cardinals to get down to 1st and 10 at the 27-yard line. Never saw a third down through that. Other than 1 2nd 10, the only other second downs were 2nd and 4 or less. It was just like bam, 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 bam. And then all of a sudden, they just became a football team for 4 downs that I just described. So cool. Freaking cool.
Freaking cool as well. Arizona leads the league in yards gained at 425 yards a game. Tonight, 314. 111 yards less than their season average. Hugh, great stuff, man. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning. I'm not going to talk to you tomorrow. I'll be sleeping, but Slick will talk to you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., man. Yeah, go ahead.
Stuff. No, I'm just saying 7-3, number 1 in the division. Enjoy.
Love it. Thanks, Hugh. Appreciate it. That's Hugh Breedlove Millen doing a great and Buck and Slick in the morning at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Slick will start at 6 o'clock. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, Pete Carroll and Slick's final thoughts. You got to get Slick's final thoughts on the Steel postgame show. He's been listening to Hugh for the last 30 minutes. We got to let the man talk. We'll do it next on 950 KJR. Let's go.
Tune in to Chuck and Buck every weekday morning for the 12th Man News at 7 with Tacoma News Tribune's Greg Bell on your home for the 12th man and the NFL. Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
All right, back here, the final six with Slick of the night. And question for you guys as we get kind of a third one. It's kind of an extended post-game show tonight presented by Real Steel. So here is the question to you. The defense. 10 games in, we've seen it's bad. Tonight we've seen it's good. But what are you most happy with, A, from the game, and then B, what is your confidence level in the defense moving forward? I want to scale from 1 to 10, 10 being, yeah, we're going to shut teams down. This is the LOB, and 1 being, looks like a high school team out there on defense. So what is your confidence going the rest of the way with this defense? Nick is a 6.6. That is very specific. You can get as specific as you want, whatever you think, and just, we'll get as many of them from you guys as we can. All right, still iffy on the D, but don't we have the easiest remaining schedule in the league? That is correct. No team in the league has an easier schedule than us. You get to play the Eagles, the Giants, you get to play the Jets, you get to play the Washington football team. The Niners are on the schedule. The Rams are on the schedule. That's it. That's six games. So definitely have a shot at all the things that you want. Dunlap making plays. That's what it's about. That's why we got him. It was a great trade to get Carlos Dunlap, and he showed up huge tonight. Talk about Jaron Reed. Yes, Jaron Reed showed up. This is my thought on Jaron Reed. He was the best when he was alongside Frank Clark. Now that you got Carlos Dunlap's presence, I think hopefully, and we saw it a little bit tonight, that frees up Jaron Reed a little bit to make some plays. That was nice. Bobby Wagner. I mean, we take Bobby Wagner so for granted because of the way he just plays game in and game out. I feel like, I take it for granted, but he's always there. He's making big plays. He did it tonight. He was right there along with Quandre Diggs on that second down play to Larry Fitzgerald that Hugh was just talking about. All right, here we go. 5.2, so just above marginal. Puck, of course, 12. How else could you feel about this defense or anything else? It's got to be a 12, right, on a scale from 1 to 10. Absolutely. Kendo, happy with the play of the D-line. Confidence is still a 4 until he sees multiple good performances in a row. Here's the thing. The next 4 quarterbacks you're going to face are Carson Wentz, probably Alex Smith, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones. I think you're going to see multiple good performances from the defense simply because you're not facing good quarterbacks until maybe Jared Goff. And so that's just going to be the reality. I think it's a lot of time for the defense to really gel and get well. Garrett, 6.1 is still pretty high. You say until you see more, so it has room to grow. But I think that's good, a good level of confidence. All right, Brett, well, let's see what you got for me. Defense is a 4, could get to a 6, a 5 or 6 with the offense on all cylinders. Look, I think you're right. I think a 6 from the defense out of 10 with this offense. If they're healthy, if they've got the running backs, yeah, for sure, absolutely. All right, here we go. What are you most happy with tonight? Daryl, most happy with the run game while Carson is out. Your confidence level in the defense is 8-ish. I love it. You're bullish on this team. With the defense not giving up more points than the offense, getting back to a balanced RPO, and with Shaq Griffin coming back to help a rejuvenated defense. Shaquille Griffin should be back next week. Chris Carson should be back next week. That is 2 huge players, 1 on each side of the ball. It's going to help you out as you're trying to position yourself, hopefully, for a 1 seed. Beck says, Jared Goff, not a good quarterback either, but the Rams own us. Look, division matchups are – I'm not going to credit Nick Mullins with being a scary quarterback. That's just not the case. Not the case. And don't take what happened in the fourth quarter against the Niners this year as evidence of anything other than you had a team in the Seahawks who had won the game, dropped back, and let the Niners just have long drives to run out the clock. That's it. Nick Mullins is not a quarterback that scares me. He will not scare me. He should not scare you. The Seahawks, even the Seahawks defense should have their way with Nick Mullins. Complacency in the second half, I think maybe I don't know about complacency because these guys were, they were balls to the wall the whole game. The effort was there. The energy was there. I just think that, sometimes you make some mistakes, mental errors. There are mental errors in the second half for sure of this game. So that's, that it happens. It happens. It started with the Quandre Diggs penalty. As you mentioned, he said he wanted to strangle him. I know the feeling. A.K. Hamblin says, a nice mini buy coming up to get right. That's the good. If you can steal one on Thursday night And then, by the way, waiting all the way until Monday to play Philadelphia, an extra day. Yeah, you get yourself an extra bye. Speaking of extra, this is an extra 6. Been loving hanging out with you. Now here's Dick Fain for the rest of the 12th Man post-game show presented by Real Steel.
Now back to the 12th Man postgame show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours. Visit your local steel dealer today on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950, KJR.
I enjoy during our radio break, Slickhawk breaking down the quarterbacks we get to face for the rest of the year, which is nice. We'll go over that for our radio listeners after we hear from Pete Carroll, because it does look appetizing. I mean, Thanksgiving's coming up on next Thursday, and that is turkey and mashed taters.
Gobble, baby.
What's coming up for the Seahawks? There is no question about it at all. Let's hear from the I'm sure jubilant head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, Pete Carroll, after this one.
Really fired up about this game tonight. Our guys really wanted to turn things and get back on track. And even with all of the situations with all the guys in and out in the lineup and all that, it just didn't matter tonight. And the guys played really well across the board. Special teams were lights out for us. Great efforts and coverage and the kicks and all that. The defense did a really nice job tonight. Gave up 50-something yards rushing and kept them under wraps. Saved the penalties. We really would have had a really big night tonight on defense. Offense played really efficient, no turnovers, which was great. 160-something yards rushing. Rush was really efficient tonight and really sharp. Ran well when he had his chances. It was just a really good night of football. And it was great to see Carlos Dunlap, finish it off on almost a walk-off sack, which was pretty cool and really fun. And great to see him continue to contribute and help us. I know that you've been hearing me talk about it, but we're getting well here soon. And we're going to get better, and we're going to be stronger, and we're going to be better for it. And we have a chance to really put together a good opportunity here for us by playing good ball week in, week out. So it's a big win playing in the division, and to come out of it first place, that's a good deal for us, and we're fired up about it. A couple of days off too. Guys are going to get 3 days off, so it's a mini break for us, and we'll take advantage of that. We've got to kick butt COVID-wise, and then we'll come back and get going for the next week.
Hey, Pete, you were talking all week about the need to get balance on offense, and it was clearly evident with Carlos Hyde out there what a difference he made for the offense with his hard running, the juice he gave you guys. How much did you see that impact the game plan defensively for the Cardinals?
I mean, it felt like the Seahawks, It felt like the Seahawks that we've all seen over the years. Carlos did a great job tonight. He did exactly what we needed. We needed him to run hard and run tough, knock people backwards, and make extra yards with his juice. And the guys up front responded with him. I don't know, we had 80 yards or something like that. That was a really good contribution to this effort tonight, and it balanced us out, just like we talked about. Russ didn't have to throw for 400 yards to have a big night. He had a big night throwing for just under 200, and Carlos had a great factor that he played tonight for us.
Do you have an update on Greg Olsen?
It's a little early, but he has a fascia tear injury that he's had before in his other foot. He knows exactly what it is, and sometimes when it ruptures like it did, we think it's the best thing for a quick recovery. So we'll see what happens, and wish him the best, and hopefully he can make it back. The fact that he's already had this before really helps him understand what's coming up.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry, when you say make it back, are you talking about back next season or potentially later this season?
I don't know that yet. There's been some marvelous returns for guys who do that rupture their fascia that would blow you away. Right now he's in really a lot of discomfort and all that, but we'll see what happens. We'll hold a good hope and see. I can't tell you anymore. That's why it's pretty early to be talking about it, obviously.
Pete, what led to the decision to go with Damian at center, and then along with that, do you have an update on Brandon Shell's injury?
Well, that's our best choice. He's such a good athlete, and of course, right off the bat, he gets in trouble on play and had a couple penalties tonight. His head was full of all kinds of thoughts. It was a marvelous job by him to pull that off. He started working it last week. He'd been taking snaps, during the early season and stuff, but he really, because of the injuries last week, he had to get ready to back up, and so now he's forced to action, and he pulled it off. In a winning effort. He's a really, really good football player. He's really smart, and he's so poised. He handled it really well, and he'll only get better. So that just makes him that much more versatile. You asked about Brandon Shell. Brandon Shell got a sprained ankle. I don't know how bad it is. Don't know that.
Hopefully it's not the dreaded high ankle sprains. Hopefully it's just a ankle sprain of the normal variety that you and I used to get playing basketball, back in the 90s.
Used to get. I get them walking up the stairs. What are you talking about? Got to go for my car to the office.
But Pete is right. This team is going to get healthier with the obvious exception of Greg Olsen. These are not long-term situations. We don't really know the situation with Dunbar. I mean, potentially going on the IR. Yep. Who knows? That could be a long-term thing. But you were mentioning earlier in the show that it appears that Shaq Griffin is going to be ready to go on Monday. So you're going to have Shaq on one side and Trey on the other side, and at least get back to what you had last year at the cornerback position. Another game that Jamal Adams felt a little more comfortable in. So that secondary is starting to round into shape. And I'm just spending the time listening to Pete and then just looking at what the competitors in this division have. I mean, the LA Rams are at Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football. I mean, you're either going to get a Rams loss or you're going to get a Bucs loss. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not so sure who I'm rooting for, because honestly, I think the Bucs have a better chance to get to 12 than the Rams do. So I'm almost rooting for the Rams in this game to beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the Rams in the division, so I guess I kind of am too. I mean, I'll just this is going to be one of those where I just kind of hang back and the result will be what it is, and I'll just root for my fantasy team. But and then I wake up on Tuesday morning and say, okay, well, the standings are what they are. Yeah, I'm not worried about the Rams at this point for the division. So, I mean, they could run the table, I guess, and then beat you theoretically. I don't anticipate that. Now, I would have liked to have been able to eliminate them ourselves last week. I could bring out the elimination hamster. It didn't go that way, so unfortunately, whatever. I don't consider them to be a factor in the division. I still think it's you and it's Arizona.
I mean, the Rams have at the Bucs, they have at the Cardinals, they have the Cardinals at home, they have at the Seahawks, and they have the Patriots from here on out. I mean, none of those are just gimme games for the LA Rams. That is going to be a very, very difficult road to hoe. And meanwhile, the Arizona Cardinals, you're done with them. You got the split, so you don't have to worry about it. The only tiebreaker you got to worry about is potentially a division record. And right now, you're 2-2 in the division. They're 2-1 in the division.
Yep.
But they still have to play the Rams twice. You only have to play the Rams once from here on out. They're at the Patriots next week. Then they have the Rams. Then they have a very winnable game against the Giants, obviously. Another winnable game against the Eagles. And they're kind of easy stretches in the middle of December where they go Giants, Eagles, 49ers. But then the end of the season, they're at the Rams in the last game of the year. I mean, so there is really 3 more significant games for Arizona. Meanwhile, you only have 1. I mean, you only have 1 game on your schedule. Now, I'm a little bit, maybe I just need to give my boy Kevin Shockey a call and have a phone conversation with him for 5 minutes, because whatever concern, from what I've heard him say about his beloved Philadelphia Eagles, whatever concern I have for next Monday Night Football, I'm sure he can talk me off the ledge, because he said numerous times on the air that team just sucks. There's Kevin right there on the.
I don't know. I just don't know who would worry you.
He got his thumbs down. I don't know. Last
they just brought in Jordan Howard.
We kind of have like goofy 12-7 games against Philadelphia. I don't know. I guess
but that we win though. That we win.
Yeah, that's true.
Wonky stuff happens against the Eagles. I see you shaking your head, Chalky. You're absolutely right. Look, I mean, the facts. Okay, Carson Wentz. That doesn't bother me. There are tight ends who are probably their best pass catchers. They've been in and out because of injury. I guess they're getting Zach Ertz back now. Travis Fulgham's really been their most their most productive wide receiver. They're not going to throw a lot at you. Defensively, they don't scare me. Okay, I'm like, right. Good point. How long are we going to see them break down the freaking Philadelphia Eagles, right? Okay, I'm not worried about that.
For those that are listening on radio, Shockey's coming on our screen on social media and just giving us the what the hell are you talking about look.
Exactly.
My team is horrible.
Talk about the Cardinals, though, and their upcoming schedule. Here's the difference. Now, this is where being veteran helps you. Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, these Seahawks, their main cogs, most of them, they've been here before down the stretch in a playoff race. Kyler Murray hasn't. Cliff Kingsbury hasn't. One of those games that we say very easily winnable, would not surprise me to see Arizona kick one of those. And they, right now, because Seattle is veteran and does know how to win down the stretch, I would say Arizona can't really afford to kick one of those. Obviously, they could if they had won tonight. They didn't.
I agree with you. And let's not forget, remember what I tweeted out earlier on today? I said that the Arizona Cardinals have only led in 25 of the last 190 minutes of football. And they happen to win 2 of those 3 games.
Yeah.
They won against the Seahawks in overtime where they never led for 1 minute in the game. And then they won on a Hail Mary against Buffalo. So they very easily could have gone, lost to Seattle, lost to Buffalo, lost to Miami, lost to Seattle. I mean, they could very easily be on a 4-game losing streak right now. Now, they've kept themselves in it because they won that first Seattle game and because they won with the Hail Mary. Yeah. But now you got a Cardinal team that has a much tougher schedule than you. And the final 6 Seahawks opponents, 18-37. And if you throw out the one game against the Rams that you know is going to be a ball buster, there's no question about that at all. It doesn't matter what your record is going in. Doesn't matter what the Rams record is going in. That will be a ball buster on the 27th of December. There's no question about that at all. Other than that, you are facing 12-34 in the other 5 games. Whew. That has to be a 5-1 record. Now, you got a shot at 6-0, but I would never expect any NFL team to finish any season with 7 consecutive wins. I just would not put that on. I wouldn't put that on the 2017 Patriots. I wouldn't put it on the 72 Dolphins. You just can't expect to win 7 games in a row. But you can expect with this schedule, Eagles, Giants, Jets, Washington, Rams, 49ers. You can expect this team to finish 5-1. And if they do, they're 12-4. They are without question the division champions because nobody can catch them, basically. Nobody's good because those teams aren't going to go undefeated the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And then you've got a great shot for that number 1 overall seed in the first round bye.
Well, Dick, just at the right time, the Seattle Seahawks found who they are and who they want to be. And for the next 4 weeks, they can focus on getting healthy, growing together, gelling as they go down the stretch against some teams that are less than formidable, and getting right for those final 2 division games as they go into the playoffs. So they're very well positioned right now to have all the momentum they need going into the playoffs. I think they're in a very good position, and I think that at just the right time, they may be finally hitting their stride.
To wrap things up, let's just give you something that you can rest your head on your pillow easy tonight. Let's go through these quarterbacks. Carson Wentz.
Yes.
Danny Dimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold or Joe Flacco.
41 yards.
One or the other. Whoever the flavor of the week in Washington is.
I think it'll be Alex Smith.
Alex Smith, probably. Jared Goff and Nick Mullins.
Yeah.
Those are the quarterbacks you face between now and the end of the season. That is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And maybe that's the only reason why I even gave the Eagles a shot, because believe it or not, Carson Wentz is the best quarterback you're going to see the rest of the year, and I might even put him ahead of Jared Goff.
This is going to surprise you. I think in the next 4 games, maybe the team, I'm not going to say worry, but like if I was like, might be that Washington football team.
They're good defense.
They've got Chase Young. He can be a beast.
Yep.
Alex Smith is a veteran quarterback.
Antonio Gibson, pretty nice running back.
Yes, they have not horrible Webson. Terry McLaurin is a legit wide receiver in this league. So, and Ron Rivera, we know this. He's a hell of a head coach. So, I don't think that they'll get tripped up, but they should just kind of watch that. You kind of circle that as well. Maybe this, if something's going to happen, it might happen here against Washington. But no, I think they're going to be all right.
All right. Well, you're gonna have to do it Monday Night Football without me, man. I'm going on vacay. All right. I'm going on vacay. So it's the Slickhawk. It's the Slickhawk show. You can bring guest host Kevin Shockey on after the Seahawks kick the crap out of his Eagles. That sounds like a hell of an idea.
I don't want to do that to Shockey.
Yeah,
it's not going to be fun for him.
And I'll be back the day after. Hopefully, the day after the Seahawks beat the Eagles. That'll be my next day back on that Tuesday, December 1st. Hopefully, the Seahawks can take care of business and go to 8-3. But thanks so much to Slickhawk, to Kevin Shockey, to Jackson Feltz, Hugh Millen, a cast of thousands here on 950 KJR, and thank you, Seahawk defense. Thank you, Seahawk defense, for giving us something to cheer about, and we don't have to worry about like a 40-37 game tonight. We actually saw a normal scoring NFL football game tonight, and the offense did enough to take care of business. Hawks are 7-3. They're in first place. Hey, root for the Rams, root for the Bucks this weekend. Who cares, really? I mean, somebody's going to lose that game, which is good for Seattle, depending on if you're looking at the division race or the number 1 overall seed. That's going to do it for us. I'll talk to you after my vacay. Take care of another win for me next week against the Philadelphia Eagles, and Slick will have you on the post-game show. Don't forget Chuck, Buck, and Slick with Hugh Breedlove Millen, the I almost said Monday morning quarterback.
It is
Friday morning quarterback
on a Friday.
On a Friday tomorrow morning, breaking down this one. Softy will be with you. Hugh's got a big day tomorrow because Hugh's in for me on Friday at 3:00. So Hugh's going to be burning the midnight oil and then doing double shift tomorrow. But after a Seahawk win, it's a heck of a lot easier right here on Sports Radio 950 KJR. Good night, everybody.
Tune in to Chuck and Buck every weekday morning for the 12th Man News at 7 with Tacoma News Tribune's Greg Bell on your home for the 12th man in the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Hey there, homeowners. Have you had that annoying experience of low water pressure in the